Stay tuned for the latest update on the fatal accident which claimed 12 lives along the Harare-Blair Road earlier today. We shall take you to the courts for an update on the trial of businessmen Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu, which commenced today. The two are facing fraud charges involving over $7 million United States dollars. And in sport, Warriors coach Michael Nees has defended his Warriors selection. Kadewere, Bill Antonio and Chipezeze have bounced back. So who are the surprise omissions? We give you the details. In our first report this evening, the United Kingdom government has lifted sanctions on 4 Zimbabwean officials and 1 entity. The 4 are Midlands Provincial Affairs Minister Owen Ngube, former Director General of the Central Intelligence Organization Isaac Moyo, former Police Chief Godwin Matanga, and Minister of Sports retired Lieutenant General Anselm Sanyatwe. The 4 were sanctioned by the UK in 2021. Sanctions against the Zimbabwe defense industry ZDI have also been dropped. The United Kingdom says the revoctions were followed by a similar move by the European Union in February of 2025. Our group political editor Ranga Mataire joins us live to discuss this development. Ranga, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this latest development, is it an indication of improving relations between Zimbabwe and the UK?
Thank you for that question and thank you for having me. Yes, I think the delisting of Zimbabwean individuals from the sanctions list is a positive development and also an indication that relations between the two countries are improving. I think the bilateral relations have been improving since 2017, fundamentally because the new dispensation promulgated a policy of re-engagement and engagement. The re-engagement and re-engagement foreign policy is anchored on being an enemy to none and a friend to all. It is also anchored on engaging former adversarial countries and strengthening relations with those countries that have always stood by Zimbabwe. So in terms of relations between Britain and Harare, I think the relations have been growing positively. You might be aware that Zimbabwe has made an application to be admitted in the Commonwealth, which application is being assessed currently. But I also think that the appointment of the current new ambassador, the British ambassador to Zimbabwe, has also made things better. I think most people who follow him on social media, he has been quite on the forefront in trying to promote soft diplomacy. So you'd see him participating in social activities. And the fact that he also once stayed in Zimbabwe and worked in Zimbabwe has also helped.
Now, Rang, apart from that, what political and economic dividend can Zimbabwe then derive from cordial relations with the United Kingdom?
I think there are plenty relations from an economic, political, cultural and social point of view. But from a trade point of view, I think there is a lot. Currently, I think there is 411 million pounds of trade in the last quarter to 2024. So that is an indication that has improved significantly, I think by 24.9% increase. So that in itself is a positive aspect of the growing healthy relations between the two countries. In terms of cultural, I think you might be aware that the UK is probably the single bilateral donor in the education sector. So that is bound also to improve. I think there are other things that you might be aware that we have some British companies that are invested in the country. And in terms of cultural exchange, I think that would enhance quite a lot. Even the foreign perception of Zimbabwe would improve. So there's a lot that Zimbabwe can derive in terms of dividends from cordial relations with the former colonial power. I've mentioned about the social, educational, cultural aspects. You also be aware that there is a large chunk of Zimbabweans currently domiciled in the UK, particularly in the health sector. So I think the dividends that can be derived from cordial relations between the UK and Zimbabwe are many, are plenty.
Now, Ranga, in your view, what can Zimbabwe be doing to ensure that more sanctions are lifted off them?
I think there is nothing that Zimbabwe is not doing or has not done for the world to see that in the first place the sanctions were not justified. At the crux of the matter in terms of the sanctions was the issue of land. Which of land we seem to be over the cliff now in terms of dealing with that issue. Yeah, there is the issue of compensation. That was also one of the sticking points. Currently, the government is in the process and has already made some payouts for in terms of compensation for development that took place on the farms. They have paid some compensation to former white commercial farmers. So that's also a positive issue that has been addressed in as far as the land issue is concerned. You might also be aware that Zimbabwe is currently negotiating in terms of debt cancellation, which requirement was also a sticking point, which requirement the European Union also wanted addressed, including the Americans. So there are lots of things that Zimbabwe has done that should show the world that in the first place the sanctions were not justified. Even its foreign policy thrust of saying that is a friend to all and enemy to none, it's also meant to show the world that Zimbabwe wants to be a key player in the global community.
Oranga, thank you so much for joining us. That was Ranga Mataire, the Zimbabwe's group political editor, just helping us discuss this latest move by the United Kingdom to lift sanctions on 4 Zimbabwean officials and 1 entity. Let us quickly look at their 4 officials once again. Now on to some tragic news. 12 people were killed early Tuesday morning when a fuel tanker collided with 2 vehicles near the Zimbabwe River along the Harare-Bulawayo Road. The fatal road crash occurred at the 200-kilometer peg near Kwekwe, involving a petrol tanker with 2 trailers, a 2-ton truck, and a Nissan AD van carrying 12 occupants, reported to be an illegal pirate taxi, Mshikashika. According to police, the fuel tanker, which was heading towards Kwekwe from Harare, first sideswiped the 2-ton truck coming from the opposite direction before colliding head-on with the Nissan AD van.
It is alleged that the driver of the truck, which had petrol, lost control of the vehicle, which was proceeding towards Kwekwe from Harare. And there was the first vehicle which was coming from the opposite direction here at near Zimbabwe River, around 200-kilometer peg from Harare to Bulawayo. So the driver of the truck hit the first vehicle which was in front from the opposite direction, which veered off the road, and no one was injured in that vehicle. And the second vehicle, which was rightly behind the first one, coming also from the opposite direction of the fuel tanker, was also hit, dragged, and trapped by the tanker. It fell on top of this AD van vehicle, which was carrying 12 passengers on board. Very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate indeed, and very tragic news. Now, the search for 8 Labour Court judges is currently underway in Harare, with the Judicial Service Commission conducting public interviews to fill the vacancies. 27 candidates in total are being interviewed by a panel of 10 Judicial Service Commissioners led by the Chief Justice. Our reporter Sharon Munjenjima was following the proceedings.
What's past is prologue, so the saying goes. But for some aspiring judges, past incidents are casting a long shadow over their hopes of becoming Labour Court judges. First interviewee Innocent Bepura, who currently serves as a regional magistrate, was confronted with his past as questions of road accidents he has had with the Commission's vehicle were posed.
You were involved in various acts of misconduct involving your usage of work vehicles. Now, based on that, my question is, how then do you believe the Commission, how can you make the Commission believe that this conduct is not going to extend to the next court which you are aspiring?
This is not the first time Bepura has been questioned about these accidents during public interviews. Similar questions were posed to him as he vied for a High Court judge post last year. His responses may have improved over time, but only time will tell whether he will succeed in this interview.
Yeah, I am glad you said accidents. These are accidents. On the first instance, I was coming across a truck, and I think a boulder fell on the bonnet of the truck. That was unavoidable. And on the second incident, I think we had gone for a workshop. I parked at Holiday Inn Blawayo. When I came back from the room,
Harare Magistrate Estere Chivasa was questioned on a low clearance rate of finished cases and whether she would be able to handle pressures of a higher court. The commissioners had evidence of a low output of cases. Chivasa responded that the statistics are contextual.
Before me, I am in court number 12. We deal with robbery matters, serious robbery matters, and most of the time, there are multiple accused persons. Number 2, the accused persons come up with so many excuses. And the other thing is that they had multiple counts. And one of the witnesses, after we commenced the matter, relocated to the UK.
Corporate lawyer Tinevimbo Gatawa has worked for about 13 employers in the past decade, both public and private institutions. According to his profile read to him, he would spend an average of 18 months at each job, and litigation would follow his departure. The commissioners wanted to know if this pattern will be repeated should he succeed in becoming a Labour Court judge. Gatawa says the Labour Court was his intended destination.
So now that I have made a determination and a decision, which I had even prior to this, to become a judge, I have nowhere else to move to, because this is where I wanted to be from that time up to now.
13 candidates took their turn in the hot seat today, showcasing their expertise and passion for labour law. 14 more interviewees are set to face the panel tomorrow.
After all the candidates have been interviewed, the commissioners will retire and deliberate on the respective performances. A list of qualifying candidates will then be prepared and submitted to His Excellency the President in terms of the Constitution.
Among the candidates interviewed today were Law Society of Zimbabwe Secretary Edward Mapara and Bianga Makwande, who is an employee of the Judicial Services Commission. The process continues tomorrow. Shera Munjenjema for ZTN News in Harare.
The Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu trial has begun today. We give you details when Newsplus comes back.
In the month of July 2025, the world will gather at one of nature's greatest wonders, Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe. From the 23rd to the 31st of July 2025, Zimbabwe will proudly host the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Contracting Parties to the Convention on Wetlands, COP15. This is more than a conference. It's a call to action, running under the theme, protecting wetlands for our common future. COP15 will unite 173 nations to address pressing issues: wise use of wetlands, biodiversity loss, climate change, and sustainable development. Together, we will explore innovative solutions, strengthen global commitments, and ensure wetlands remain vital for the current generation and those to come. Join us in shaping a sustainable future. COP15, Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, July 23rd to 31st. Protecting wetlands for our common future starts here. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife.
Stuck on you. Ooh, obsessed with you. I'm obsessed.
With Showmax, your favorite characters now follow you anywhere. Download it today and watch the best in local, international, and everything in between.
Welcome back. You are still watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime. The Southern African Development Community SADC has scaled up its effort to mitigate natural disasters with the establishment of Humanitarian and Emergency Operations Center in Mozambique. The center will be responsible to coordinate regional disaster risk preparedness, response and support to member states affected by disasters. Speaking during today's post-cabinet briefing, Information Minister Dr. Jenfan Muswere said the government has considered the report from the extraordinary meeting of the Committee of Ministers responsible for disaster risk management.
The meeting also approved the constitution of the members of the first governing board of the SADC Humanitarian and Emergency Operations Center, as well as approval of the members of the SADC Emergency Response Team as presented by the Secretariat, as this will facilitate effective response to the broad range of disasters the region continues to face.
Still with the post-cabinet briefing, government has committed to strengthen competency-based education with more than 10,000 teachers and lecturers set to receive training in artificial intelligence and digital literacy. Information Minister Jenfan Muswere said government is adopting resolutions from the Innovation Africa Summit, which was held in Ethiopia last month. This will also see government partnering experts from the United Arab Emirates in initiatives that are aimed at bridging the digital divide.
As a way forward, the government of Zimbabwe will partner with the digital schools and global skilling academies of the United Arab Emirates to harness the potential of solar energy, digital education, skills development, and public-private community partnerships to drive inclusive growth in Zimbabwe's rural communities. Additionally, the government of Zimbabwe will further strengthen competence-based education and training reforms. More than 10,000 teachers and lecturers will receive annual training in artificial intelligence and digital literacy.
From the cabinet, we take you straight to the courts where businessmen Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu's trial in the over $7 million United States presidential pass-on goat scheme fraud finally started today. Two key witnesses took to the stand, testifying that the duo used fake documents to win the tender. Our crime and courts correspondent Kimberly Chimbalanga was at the High Court.
Businessmen Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu's trial finally commenced this Tuesday. This was after the duo withdrew two of their applications, a trial de novo and recusal of the judge. The state led by Whisper Mabaudi led evidence from a Zimra supervisor in the taxpayer registration section, Fungai Kapunde, who told the court that he's the one who proved that the tax clearance certificate used to win the presidential goat scheme tender were forged and fraudulent. The witness told the court that the certificate has certain features that prove its authenticity, which include a business partner number as well as a QR code. When the QR code was scanned, it showed that the documents belonged to a company named Skyhawk Private Limited instead of Blackjack Investments, which was the alleged owner. Kafunde offered to rescan the certificate in court to strengthen his claim using his cell phone. The defense, led by Tapson Zwetel, objected to it, stating that they were not informed about the process and that they did not know the gadget being used and the software being used. The witness also indicated that he only gave information to the effect that the certificate was forged and fraudulent, but could not ascertain who forged it. The state also led evidence from a NASA credit control manager, Titus Mbande, who testified that upon verification of the NASA clearance certificate, they noticed that one of the numbers on the QR code on the document was tampered with. The number proved the certificate to also belong to Skyhawk Private instead of Blackjack. However, the defense argued that there is no evidence that proves Mpofu and Chimombe had a hand in the forging of the document. The defense further questioned the qualification of the witnesses when it comes to verifying anomalies that relate to QR codes and information technology software. The trial will continue on May 29 with other witnesses expected to testify. For the TN Prime, I'm Kimberly Chimbalanga in Harare.
Now, the week has already started, but we are preparing you for the days that are coming ahead after the long weekend in terms of the weather. We are joined live by the Met Services Department Chief Forecaster, James Ngoma. James, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us once again. As we are now heading into June, the cold months, what is the weather looking like for the week ahead?
Good evening, Faith, and thank you very much for that question. Looking at our forecast for the rest of the month of May, we're expecting the next few days to be very interesting because we had a bit of moisture that drifted in from the northwestern parts of the country, that's through Zambia and Botswana into parts of Matabeleland, north into Bulawayo Metropolitan, as well as the Midlands province. Gave us a few showers here and there, but nothing very significant. Most of it was below a millimeter in terms of rainfall. And we're expecting that moisture to suppress the occurrence of ground frost because moisture has that nature of retaining much of the heat during the day. And this moisture field is expected to drift westwards into the Mashonaland provinces, including our metropolitan, as we get into the rest of the week. But interestingly, towards the end of the week, that's on Thursday into Friday, we're expecting that moisture to be pushed further northwards outside of the country, giving us mostly clear skies across the entire country in all the provinces. And with that, the clear skies removes the blanket of moisture across board and gives us the cool conditions, especially in the early hours of the morning. So it gets very cold in the morning, but the afternoons tend to be warm. So you have that sharp contrast between daytime and afternoon, where you have got very warm conditions during the day and very cold nights, and that causes a bit of a disturbance in terms of our human physiology and all that.
Now, James, we are looking into the winter season that's coming up ahead. What is the major difference between this winter season and that of the previous seasons?
So the current trajectory, we've seen an early onset of our wintry temperatures where we have had occurrence of ground frost, though slight in areas such as Matopos, Gweru, as well as the Manicaland provinces. But because the temperatures have already started to dip, we expect them to dip further as the sun moves further northwards. That's the trajectory of our winter period, where we expect it to be furthest around end of June. That's around the 21st, 22nd of June, which we call our winter solstice. And this gives us the least in terms of amount of radiation over the southern parts of the hemisphere. And given that, we expect our temperatures to be far less as we get into the month of June and even as we get into July, with most of our winds drifting in from the cold south into the interior of the country, giving us cooler conditions over much of the country.
Now, for our farmers who are into winter cropping, what is your advice to them?
Thank you very much, Faith, for that question. Looking at our winter farming, we've had quite adequate amounts of rainfall in a number of provinces, so most of our dams are full. In terms of irrigation capacity, I think the country is well equipped in terms of that. And we know that, as we've stated, that moisture retains the humidity as well as the warmth that is required to curb the occurrence of ground frost. So for those into horticulture, the days that you know that there is going to be frost, when we forecast frost, it's always best to do contingency measures in terms of counteracting that occurrence of frost in those areas. And some of the measures are the overhead irrigation. You can also employ the greenhouse built infrastructure. Those can also help maintain the heat in terms of the heat required for the horticultural produce and to also reduce the occurrence of frost. So there are many measures that they can also try to employ. For better advice, they can always seek advice from their local agri-tax officers who are well informed in terms of how to curb such occurrences. And in terms of the other farmers, the poultry farmers, there's also that need to constantly check the temperatures of your hen houses, and this will ensure that your young chicks are also not affected by the cold mornings and the evenings as well.
James Ngoma, the chief forecaster with the Met Department, with his message to stay warm as the winter season is now upon us. James, thank you so much once again. Government says preparations for the 2025 winter wheat season are at an advanced stage, with over 50% of the inputs having been distributed under the Presidential Inputs Program. About 1,420 metric tons of seed and nearly 2,746 metric tons of Compound D have so far been distributed to farmers in various districts, with farmers being called on to visit their nearest branches for collection. ADA's Chief Director Leonard Mlamati said farmers should plant in time for them to realize maximum use.
We are encouraging farmers to wind up their plantings. Under the PIP program and the irrigation schemes, we have got a total of 20,000 hectares which should be planted under these. And we are saying farmers should be innovative enough to come to GMB and even collect without necessarily waiting for GMB.
Valley Seeds, which is one of the suppliers of the presidential inputs, said they have enough stocks to supply all farmers beyond the winter season.
Everything you are seeing here in terms of the wheat seed is all of the corn. And once we are done with winter, the next thing that we are basically focusing on, we are now focusing on the summer season. We've had a bit of seed that is here in the warehouse in terms of your traditional grains. There's quite a lot of sunflower seed that we want to start picking right now, earmarked for summer.
The Minister of State for Bulawayo Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Judith Ncube, has sounded alarm over the growing threat of Veld fires in the province, urging all stakeholders to join forces in combating the crisis. Speaking at the launch of the 2025 Provincial Fire Awareness Week in Bulawayo, Minister Ncube warned that uncontrolled Veld fires threaten not only the environment but also food security and Zimbabwe's broader development agenda.
NDS1 envisions a prosperous, resilient and sustainable Zimbabwe, but such a vision cannot be realized if our natural resources are constantly under threat from uncontrolled fires.
Latest figures from the Environmental Management Agency show that Veld fires destroyed over 400,000 hectares of forest and grassland in 2024 alone, a staggering 78% increase from the previous year. Emma Provincial Manager Sitengisiwe Ndlovu said sharing best practices was key in guiding all stakeholders in effective fire prevention and firefighting strategies.
We're also looking at promoting community involvement and responsibility. The various stakeholders who are here, it's all our role. We need all to take responsibility in terms of managing Veld fires. We're also looking at strengthening institutional coordination and collaboration. We know we have various institutions, so we don't want to work in silos when it comes to Veld fires.
Now, when Newsplus comes back, we give you a look at news from beyond our borders. Stay with us.
The future is now and is powered by artificial intelligence. Zim Papers proudly presents the 2025 AI Conference, a groundbreaking event happening on the 30th of May in Mutare at Manicaland State University of Applied Sciences. Join leading AI experts, researchers, innovators, and institutions already applying artificial intelligence to solve real-world challenges, from media and agriculture to education and finance. Whether you are a business stakeholder, a tech enthusiast, a student, or simply curious about how AI is changing our world, this conference is for you. Don't miss this opportunity to learn, connect, and be part of Zimbabwe's digital future. For marketing and exhibition, contact Tendai Mberibe on 0772 671 488. Zim Papers AI Conference 2025. Advancing innovation, empowering Zimbabwe.
And now look at news from beyond our borders. We are starting it off in Ghana, with Ghana's Foreign Affairs Minister having announced that the country has temporarily closed its embassy in the U.S. capital amid an investigation into an alleged visa scam. The minister, Samuel Ablakwa, said the embassy will be shut following the damning findings of an audit team that he put together to investigate alleged corruption at the Washington diplomatic mission. The statement added that the closure would last a few days until a restructuring and systems overhaul is finalized. According to the minister, a locally recruited staff member and collaborators were allegedly involved in a fraudulent scheme whereby they extracted money from visa and passport applicants. In the DRC, the Minister of Human Rights in the Democratic Republic of Congo has condemned the alleged illegal repatriation of civilians to Rwanda and accused the M23 of targeting displaced Congolese people as well. This follows a recent announcement by the UN Refugee Agency that hundreds of Rwandan refugees who had been living in eastern Congo since 1994 genocide had been repatriated after M23 militants seized key areas in the region. However, some of those returning described the process as a long-awaited homecoming.
Ubwo rero bibaye ngombwa ko habaho kubika ko tugomba gutaha tugasubira iwacu mu Rwanda aho twavukiye. Maze imyaka 16 muri Kongo. Nta kibazo kuko ndabona kwanga u Rwanda kandi nararuvukiyemo.
Now, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi called on China and Africa to enhance solidarity, jointly oppose power politics, and advocate multilateralism. Wang made the remarks when he was meeting with African diplomats envoys in China on Monday in Beijing. Ambassadors of chargé d'affaires of more than 50 African countries to China and representatives of the African Union in China attended the meeting. Wang said the overall positioning of China-Africa relations has been upgraded to an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future in the new era, and China's relations with Africa have entered their best period in history.
冷战思维、霸道、霸凌、
逆流涌动，多重风险挑战相互叠加，和平发展、安全治理四大赤字日益扩大。中国和非洲，我们是世界上最大的发展中国家和发展中国家最集中的大陆，我们都是全球南方的重要的成员。国际形势越是变乱交织，我们越是要坚定地站在一起，加强我们的团结合作，共同反对强权政治，共同倡导多边主义，共同维护联合国为核心的国际体系，共同促进贸易投资的自由化便利化。
From China, we take you to the UAE, with the President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan having received Paraguayan President Santiago Pena at the Beach Palace in Abu Dhabi on Monday, where they discussed strengthening bilateral relations. The leaders discussed various aspects of cooperation and joint action, particularly the development of the economy, trade, renewable energy, food security, climate action, and promoting the sustainable development of prosperity of both countries. In Germany, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Monday said Germany and its allies have lifted restrictions on the range of weapons supplied to Ukraine, with Russia responding that the move is dangerous and could jeopardize efforts to bring peace. Speaking at a European policy forum in Berlin, Merz said that there would no longer be any range restriction for such weapons from Germany, Britain, France, or the United States, and noted that this would allow Ukraine to defend itself by attacking military facilities in Russia. In Gaza, the damage to the farmland and the inability of farmers to reach their fields due to the ongoing conflict have reduced more than 95% of cropland to unusable land, worsening the local food production and escalating the risk of famine, according to a report that has been released by the United Nations. According to that report, by April of this year, 12,537 hectares of farmland in Gaza had been damaged, accounting for more than 80% of the total, and 77.8% of farmers cannot access their fields. Only 688 hectares, or 4.6% of Gaza's farmland, remains cultivatable. Now, when Newsplus comes back, a look at some money matters.
Stay connected to DSTV this April and May and get all the football finals you want. Harare, tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
This is still Newsplus, and now we are taking a look at business news. The National Governing Council of the African Peer Review Mechanism workshop, focusing on economic governance and management, started in Harare today. This is a forum for African countries to self-reflect on a number of issues, chief among them, governance. The workshop is running up until Friday, where the Zimbabwe National Governing Council expected to come up with a report that will be tabled before President Emmerson Mnangagwa.
For example, for us, the topic that we are working on as the Zimbabwe National Governing Council is economic governance and management. So you pick on a topic, you produce a paper. The paper is, of course, has to be approved by the head of state and government, our head of state and government. And that paper then forms the basis for the peer review mechanism that takes place at the AU.
The ZiG inflation edged up to 0.9% in May 2025 from 0.6% in April, a 0.3 percentage point rise. The year-on-year inflation rate in Zimbabwean gold terms stood at 92.1%. Zimstat reports that food and non-alcoholic beverages were the main contributors to May's inflation, accounting for 0.6 percentage points of the monthly change. In US dollar terms, inflation remains contained. The month-on-month rate fell to minus 0.3%, down from 0.2% in the month of April, with the year-on-year inflation rate at 13.9%.
So I think the general level of inflation is largely marginal and speaks to general price certainty and to some extent stability. That's on the month-on-month movement, both in USD and in ZiG. And on the year-on-year, on the USD front, we are seeing an increase on the year-on-year inflation rate due to largely cost pressures that have been emanating in the market and in the economy, largely due to diesel-powered alternative to energy, given the energy deficiency which we have generally in the economy, as well as other cost pressures such as the regulating costs, which necessitate for there to be a decree to streamline costs for business in order to tame cost drivers that may be of inflationary nature. And then on the ZWG, which is the ZiG, we over and above these cost pressures with an exchange rate adjustment following the adjustment of the exchange rate by the central bank in September 2024.
From inflation numbers to e-commerce, the cost of internet services in Zimbabwe has been described as too high, according to findings from the Zimbabwe e-Trade Readiness Assessment conducted by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in partnership with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Speaking during a stakeholder engagement session that was held in the capital, Alessandro Vitale, a project management officer at UNCTAD's e-commerce and digital economy branch, emphasized that high internet costs are a major barrier to digital trade and inclusive e-commerce development in Zimbabwe. He noted that the assessment identified affordability, limited access to digital infrastructure, and low digital literacy as some of the key challenges hindering the country's full participation in the global digital economy.
When we look at ICT infrastructure and services, what we see is that the government of Zimbabwe has made strides in promoting connectivity, but still there are major issues when it comes to last-mile connectivity and also in enabling internet access into rural areas. And also what is really challenging is that the ICT sector is still a quite costly operating environment. There is a lot of duplication among different operators. And also there are issues with affordability. That was something that really came out loud during the multi-stakeholder consultations. And there are issues also in terms of consumer satisfaction, quality of standards, and also especially when it comes to bringing connectivity into rural areas, there are issues with the electricity.
Vitale underscored the need for collaborative policy action, improved investment in digital infrastructure, and support for digital entrepreneurship to bridge the gap and unlock the potential of e-commerce as a driver of economic growth.
So the assessment recommends to start a review on the ICT regulatory framework in the direction of promoting infrastructure sharing and also more competition among different operators and service providers. Also, to conduct a study to really analyze what are the cost drivers that are making the ICT sector a costly environment. Also, in terms of infrastructure, there's really a need to push on the infrastructure that are needed to foster cybersecurity, to promote the national data centers, internet exchange points. and also to carry out consumer surveys to see what how consumers perceive the quality of the services that are provided in the ICT sector.
Now to some retail news. Major shareholders in OK Zimbabwe are demanding a shake-up of the company's board as a condition to approve a $30 million capital raise meant to rescue the struggling retail giant. Sources close to the matter say the upcoming extraordinary general meeting, EGM, will only go ahead if it is accompanied by a formal statement confirming planned board changes at the company's annual general meeting in June. Speaking to ZTN Prime, business analyst Desire Chipisi said the stakeholders' demands speak to the governance issues that are affecting OK Zimbabwe.
The demand by major shareholders for a board shake-up as a condition for approving a 30 million capital raise reflects deep concerns about the current governance as well as the direction of the company. But however, in the context of Zimbabwe's current economic climate, raising $30 million may not be a feasible option in the short term. Investor confidence remains fragile, and our capital markets are constrained. So more urgently, there is a need to prioritize creditor management and explore restructuring options to stabilize operations and preserve value, while a more realistic funding plan is developed.
And I will give you some entertainment news.
Captain Wally J's about to take you to boot camp.
It's the riveting science and tech show that keeps you up to date with the hottest gizmos on the block and revealing the illustrious and innovative visionaries in Zimbabwe. So much to see, you'll keep swiping.
This cherry red beauty is the Dairy Auto M7 mini electric car.
They've designed our brute force incubator board.
Look at what we've got here.
Solar powered scarecrow was part of the project that I was supposed to complete.
Catch Swipe every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294. Get the picture?
Now, a look at some entertainment news. The South African entertainment industry and the African entertainment industry at large is in mourning after Tsotsi actor Presley Chweneyagae has died at the age of 40. Chweneyagae played the leading role in the Oscar-winning South African film Tsotsi in 2005, which saw him rise to international fame. He was also known for his award-winning performances as Thuso Cobra Mokoena in a drama that was called The River. He was born on the 19th of October in 1984 in Mahikeng, Northwest. His career spanned theatre, television and film, with standout performances in Mandela, The Long Walk to Freedom in 2013 and the award-winning television series The River in the year 2018. Still in entertainment, Mutare-based traditional dance group Semvumba Arts Ensemble emerged victorious in the Manicaland Provincial Finals of the 2025 Chibukune Shamwari Traditional Dance Festival and almost to represent the province at the upcoming national finals. With this win, Semvumba Arts Ensemble becomes the second group to secure a place at the national showdown. They now join Undigure, the Midlands Provincial winners. Some insights into the Warriors squad selection by Michael Nees when we look at sporting action. Now, Warriors coach Michael Nees has defended the selection ahead of friendly matches against Burkina Faso and Niger and the COSAFA tournament. Questions have been asked over the exclusion of some local players impressing at their clubs. More in the following report.
Warriors head coach Michael Nees has made surprise calls
the teams are split into two, one for the friendlies and the other for the COSAFA tournament. Premier League top scorers Washington Navai and Billy Veremu with the surprise omissions for the teams called up by the German coach. Instead, from Tier 1, the coach opted for Tawanda Macheke for the Morocco mission.
I watched also games from them, if I'm honest. That's why I, for example, include Tawanda Macheke. Actually, I wanted to watch other players and he impressed me 3 times. That's why he's in the squad. These players are not out, not at all. If the association would have decided to send a team like it was the years before, not focusing strict on development, these players most likely would have been there. But as I said again, it was internal discussions, exchange.
The Warriors head coach also defended his decision to continuously call up Brentford under-21 goalkeeper Mali Tawaziwa, who has not been playing much at the club.
Last year he was there. Last year he was at the COSAFA. How many minutes did he play? Players also, players also, how can I say, decide on their experiences, how they were treated. Last year was a great opportunity and it was not given to him, not a single minute. And that's why he said he doesn't want to do that again. Male is still a talent. He is a talent, yes, but in the club, I engage with the club. They don't know how far he can go, but they keep him because they still believe in him. It will be decided this year how far he can go.
10 locally based players make the team that will travel to Morocco for the 2 friendly encounters. For the COSAFA squad, NIS selected mostly under 23 players as the tournament will be used as preparations for the Olympic qualifiers set for next year.
Tawanda Mtali now joins us to discuss more on the Warriors squad announcement. Tawanda, good evening. Why has the likes of Knowledge Musona, Marshall Munezi, Tawanda Chirewa and Andy Runomota been omitted from the club?
The Warriors coach feels the 4 players need time to rest and recover. For Knowledge Musona and Marshall Munezi, their situation is more like one of the same as they have been in action recently. Knowledge Musona was in action recently with his club as he helped them survive the job. Whilst for Marshall Munezi, he had a difficult run of fixtures with Wolverhampton Wanderers as the English Premier League concluded over the past weekend. For the other 2, Tawanda Chirewa and Andrew Nomota, they've been nursing injuries through the course of the season, so the coach felt like he needed to give them time to rest and recover.
Interesting. Now, Tawanda, in your opinion, do you think that the under-23 side set for COSAFA will make an impact?
Yes, definitely. They will make an impact at this year's tournament because some of these youngsters, they are hungry to prove their worth. You look at players like Mafio Stewart, a fast-rising footballer at Islanders Football Club, Tanaka Mnemo, one of the best attacking players in the land. You also look at Tinotenda Mieke, a player who has been given a number of chances to prove his worth. Started out at Greenfield, he was called to the under-20 squad, failed to make it. Now he's been given a chance to play for the under-23s, and obviously you just try to utilize this opportunity and rise up. You look at the leaders, Martin Mapis as well as Andrew Mbeba. They are 2 players who have been there before, played at these tournaments before, and they know the importance of playing for the national team as they have been with the senior guys before. So obviously they will try to push up the youngsters, and obviously the youngsters will just try to use this opportunity to make sure that they put their names out there, they market themselves, and obviously they will try by all means to leave an impact as they will be playing for the national team.
Well, Tawanda, thank you so much for joining us and for those insights. That was Tawanda Mtali giving us more on the Warrior squad announcement by coach Michael Nees. Now, Manica Diamonds might be 8 points off the top of the KwaZulu Premier Soccer League standings, but boast one of the most informed players in the league. Goalkeeper Thaddeus Baye has been in imperious form for the Gem Boys and sheds insight on what he feels could be a defining season.
Manica Diamonds finally broke a 7-game winless streak, bagging all 3 points against Triangle over the weekend. Reduced to 10 men, the Gem Boys stood tall, sealing a 1-0 win with goalkeeper Thaddeus Baye stealing the show. Baye was in inspirational form, pulling off several key saves, including a penalty stop from Tabani Kamsoko to earn his 4th straight Man of the Match award. The informed shortstopper has now kept 7 clean sheets in just 11 starts, a massive jump from his early season stats from last year.
Ndakatanga 2 games then I consider 6 goals. So yakabva ndidzosa kumashure ndofunga ndakagara magames akati wandei ndisati tambi. So start yangu yegore rino yakatanga zvakanaka. Because hadina consider akawanda nane maclean sheets pahome. Pahome at least so far nsandagoeswa pahome. Pamagames andatamba esef.
In a sport where goalkeepers hardly steal the limelight, Baye has been a consistent figure of stability at Manica Diamonds as the last line of defense with healthy competition keeping him on his toes.
Ndachikupa believe mashandira atinoita ku training ne-staff yekumana department hatina kunetsana hapana aita abata ndiye saka support kutobva kune vamwe vangu so indi kuzongopedzisa ndakamira department.
Baye's coach says that the players' commitment to excellence has been the key driver behind his red-hot form.
Zvese inini pane zvese zvandoda even patraining zvese zvandoda anoita munhu asinganonoke kuuya patraining munhu anouya kutraining nearly every day time yake anoikoshesa ndozvinhu zvinomuramba zvichingoita zvichingoramba zvichinoita kuti aramba achingopefoma zviraight.
A series of draws has seen Manica Diamonds stumble in the league, but Baye is eyeing bigger things this year and wants to elevate his game with a winning mentality.
Zvinhu zvakaramba zvakadaro inogona kuita history kwandiri kwete kune vamwe but kwandiri saka pada mindset yakasimba keeper unogona kuita mistake kana kutogoeswa asingaiti but mindset ndiyo inofanira kusimba and I think ndiyo yatofanira kuika nayo this season.
There is no shortage of quality in the Manica Diamonds goalkeeping department, but right now Thaddeus Baye seems to be the front runner and will be looking to shine once again when Manica Diamonds face Cape United this weekend.
In some rugby, Zimbabwe's national rugby team, the Sables, will face Zambia in the second leg of the Zambezi series on Saturday, May 31st in Lusaka. After winning the first leg held at Harare Sports Club 70-15, the Sables go into the reverse fixture as favourites. Now, the African Union Sports Council Region 5 on Monday officially announced the signing of a protocol agreement with the government of Mozambique for the hosting of the 12th edition of the Region 5 Youth Games. The games are scheduled to take place from the 4th to the 13th of December 2026. The agreement was formalized at a high-level ceremony in Maputo on Monday, where the Minister of Sport and the Chief Executive Officer of AUSC Region 5, Stanley Mutoya, signed the protocol agreement. It sealed the commitment of both parties to deliver a games edition that reflects the values of youth empowerment, regional integration, and sporting excellence. And that's all we had for you on Newsplus this Tuesday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Faith Nyaude. We leave you with the weather forecast. Good evening and enjoy the rest of your viewing.
ubwo rero bibaye ngombwa ko habaho kubika ko tugomba